Riz, that's me, nearly ends up winning the legendary Mad Dog Trivia Contest for the Super Bowl. Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here bringing you trivia, contests, minutia, and excitement, along with the dog, Jeff Healy. Yeah, dog, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I had my shot.
Give me a shot. Classic Riz. Give me a shot. You got your shot.
I shot my shot and came up a little short.
There you go.
We're going to have some cool stuff for you to listen to and recap the whole thing, give you a little insider view. I saw, a couple of reactions to the tweet. Lee was like, "What? That was you?" I'm like, "Yeah, Lee, that was me." Yeah, Lee W18, our good buddy on Twitter. So Lee gets a shout out. Hopefully Lee's watching. Yeah, dog, it was pretty cool. First things first, the business as usual. Follow us everywhere at Diamond Diehards on social media. Follow the dog on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. Support our sponsors, Gatto Acupuncture, the Mascolo Group, FMS Graphics, and Big Ed's Car Wash. Sometimes we'll tell you more about them, but wherever you're watching or listening, go in the description. And that's how you could go and support our sponsors who have so much supported us over the years. A lot of good stuff coming up, dog, too. Just as a little teaser, once our pal Mike Puma gets set up down at spring training in Florida, the beat writer for the Mets for the New York Post for a long time. There's literally not a better beat writer for any team in the business. And he's our pal, and he will be joining us here in the coming weeks as we continue to do some of these shows where we get guests on for you and give you a little different change up from the dog and I. This show definitely, though, dog, a change up. I don't think you had a chance to hear it live, but
I did not, unfortunately. So it's like I'm in the audience.
So it's going to be new to you. I'm
here and there.
But first, as basically you have to talk a little while so I could share the links for the live part of the show. First, what did you think? Like in past years, if I've called just to be on the air, which has not been often, or to be on the contest, usually I've clued in the Fordham guys like, "Oh, I'm on hold," and it's like 45 minutes or whatever. But this time I just I texted you guys the end result, so you guys had no idea it happened. I think you were the first reactor, though, dog. What'd you think?
It was too bad. I know how much you love the contest and love a dog show and everything else like that. So definitely was hurt. I had to tease you a little bit about being oh so close. But
of course you did.
Ain't no shot like a cheap shot.
I wouldn't feel good if I didn't get cheap shotted right after. Jeez.
But yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been fantastic, and it's great you made it as far as you did with it. So kudos to that. Not a lot of guys do that. So yeah, we'll see. Someday we'll get you to the top of the mountain.
Well, I sort of teased it. Someday we might not get to the top of the mountain, and I'll explain why as we go along in the show, or I'll let Matt see. It's so confusing because if people watch High Heat, it's like that could be Riz and the dog because it's Alana Rizzo and Christopher Mad Dog Russo, but Riz and Dawg have been doing it together on air since like '88 at Fordham. That's exactly. Me and
the original Dawg.
Yeah, you were known back then as in fact as the original Dawg. Right? I don't think I'm making that up.
No,
I think that's it. True story. I think that was I think that's a true story. So yeah, it's funny when you get that close, dog. I'm anxious to kind of share. Let me just fire this link out to people. Yeah, I just did that. I didn't do it fancy. It didn't do a fancy schmancy. I just did it to get it out there. Okay. Dawg, you could watch the Facebook because I'm going to be a little preoccupied with doing some of the background stuff here. Okay. So here's the genesis of it, right? Now we got people here. We got people listening. We got your attention. Now we get down to brass tacks. All right, let's do it. So in this week in particular, it was a real so if you don't know anything about Christopher Mad Dog Russo, he's on Sirius XM. He's, the one half of the greatest radio duo in history, Mike and the Mad Dog. And about 14 years ago, he left WFAN in New York to go to Sirius, where they have Mad Dog Radio, which is their main sports channel for sports talk, as opposed to like the league-based channels or the collegiate-based channels, things like that. So if you hadn't been exposed to Mad Dog for all those years, but you're just starting to get into him now because you saw him on First Take with Stephen A. Smith, maybe you had a chance to just catch up and see, like, for a long time, he's done this Super Bowl trivia concert. So it's the first of the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. He spends a majority of the time usually trying to give away 4 trips to the Super Bowl, a couple of tickets and a few days stay wherever the game is going to be played. And then usually the week of the Super Bowl, he's actually there on Radio Row, something he and Mike Francesa essentially, like, quote unquote, invented. And some of us copied, and, in the MMA world, some of us, like me, were the first ones to ever do it at MMA events where we were broadcasting, we were live streaming like cage side. So that's, a lot of admiration. We've all been around here listening to Mike and the Mad Dog in some way, shape, or form for a million years. And this contest is like a pretty funny thing. Some people love it. Some people absolutely are just like, all right, I'm going to tune in like next week. I just can't take listening to it. That's Gallagher. So, but I love it. Like, I just love listening to the people and the questions and whatever. The structure of the contest is this. The first question is supposed to be sort of easy. Then you get a number 2, which is usually harder. You get a number 3, which could be completely like sort of outlandish, but they're regular questions where you answer, and sometimes they're an audio clip, but the audio clips, if they have it, usually are a first question, and they're pretty obvious, like, Mike Ditka or Bill Parcells or something kind of easy that a lot of people would get, even though they don't always necessarily get them. But to win the tickets, it's really hard because you have to get through those 3 difficult questions. And then the 4th question is an obscure audio clip. And it's not a clip that's like on YouTube anymore anyway. Like in the early days when you could figure it out, you'd be like, oh, you just, you would scan YouTube and you could kind of figure it out. If you had a couple of leads, you could kind of narrow it down and watch a whole bunch of YouTube clips and figure it out. Now it's like all original stuff. Like you got to deduct like what the person is saying. If you're lucky, you could figure out their voice, and there's a few ways that you could try to do it, but it's not easy at all. It's like the hardest part of the contest. It's like the hardest part of winning a hard contest to begin with, but there's a lot at stake. So, Dawg, what you don't maybe know is this week was it was probably the most difficult contest they had. They only gave away 1 trip through the first 3 days, which is light, and they out of a total of 4. And they got to Thursday, and there's this group of people that are like conglomerated. A lot of them are guests, like, in the same place at the same time, which you're not supposed to do. And they combine all of their efforts to try to just, quote unquote, steal the prize. And Doggy refers to them as the mob or the Connecticut mob or something like that. Like these, like a caller calls up, they'd be like, is this guy part of the mob? So one of those guys won. But so on Thursday, toward the end of the show, they announced that they disqualified that winner, which is like a really, I think it was an unprecedented step because he misrepresented himself to the call screeners, and that's against the rules. Then you come on today, you start the show, and you find out that they overturned the decision and that person actually won. So there were still 2 trips to give away on the last day. It's pretty good.
The guy won it. They took it back. Then they gave it back to him. Yeah.
But they cheat. So like, so
they should have taken away.
As Doggy says, like the spirit of the contest is like that any person could sort of like, it's hard. You have to do your research. If you're real good at like Googling and sorting and you could have your sources and just get a little bit lucky, you might be able to, get far in the contest. But before you even bother picking up the phone, unless you could figure out what the audio is like, even to just be in the realm of possibility, it doesn't matter, because you could have like, you could get there all day. But if you have no idea who the fourth one is, like you're screwed. So I didn't go as crazy trying to get the audio ones this year as I had in previous years. But the first one I had a really good line on. It was a guy named Dave Osborne, who was a running back for the Vikings, and he played on the early Vikings Super Bowl teams. And I had it narrowed down to that team, and I was looking for linemen on that team. And eventually, like, I would have probably gotten to Dave Osborne. The next guy was Ted Ginn Jr., and it turned out that what they do is they have a theme every year, Dawg. And the theme this year is that it was cuts from a team that made it to the Super Bowl that beat the Arizona or St. Louis Cardinals on the way to get there, because the Super Bowl's in Arizona. So it has certain themes, like they're in Arizona, the Super Bowl's in Arizona, the Cardinals are the host team. There's a lot of Cardinals questions. Eagles are there, a lot of Eagles questions. Chiefs are there, a lot of Chiefs questions. Andy Reid coached both teams and coaches the Chiefs, tons of Andy Reid questions, right? Then these other questions that kind of come completely out of the blue. So that kind of sets the stage. Now, to cheat you a little bit, I didn't ever have a full handle on what any of the other remaining number 4 audio cuts to actually win it would be. And I also was like crazy busy at work this week, so I never had a chance to even try to call in, even though they were going later, and just things didn't work out. But today, fortunately, I was able to finish up like a little bit early, and I'm like listening to it. And then it's like 5 o'clock, and I'm like, there's a fucking hour left in this contest. Like, I might as well just call and just take a shot. Like, maybe they'll just give it to me if I win 3 of them. So I'm trying to figure out, like, at least to just like research one. I'm like, okay, like just in the odd event that I actually get to the 4th question, let me just come up with a name that might be something. So I picked a guy from the Saints, because the Saints were one of the teams that lost, that beat the Cardinals on the way to getting to the Super Bowl. So we're gonna like talk a little bit about that and who I picked and why I picked it. Typically, it's a player that you might have heard of, or a name that you might have heard, but not a prominent player. So they're not going to play like a Brett Favre play.
Not Drew Brees,
Yeah, they're not going to play like a really popular person. They're not going to play somebody whose voice you're going to recognize, unless it's like you just happen to interview this person or you know them personally, which is going to be a small percentage of people, and almost no one who would play the contest would probably like know these people personally anyway. So, Dawg, I decide to take a pot shot, and I'm just sitting there. I have my computer in front of me, and I'm like, all right, let me just keep pressing the number over and over again, and it's just busy, or the call just never even goes through. And then all of a sudden it goes through. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to get a shot here. And here's how it started, Dawg. It started like this.
At least he didn't waste our time. Joe in Bergen County. Joe, good afternoon. How are you today? It's New Jersey. Joseph?
I'm good, Dawg. Usually I go by Rizzo in Bergen County, but in the few times that I call, but I'm 0 for my lifetime on the contest, so I'm just trying to get one here.
All right.
Yeah, so that's I think we did this. I think we did play these in the past where I just got absolutely annihilated. So I don't call Doggy very often, but when I do, I usually go with Riz in Bergen County. But today, like, the screener was asking me my name. Sometimes you have to give your SiriusXM account number so they know that you're actually official in the contest. But I guess they must have had my number registered in there before, and that was that. So I'm getting set up, and like in the past, I would write down maybe like pages of notes. Like some people will make spreadsheets. I would just make pages of notes because sometimes what he does is he zeroes in on certain questions, Dog. Like he at certain questions at certain times. So it's more relevant. Like something he asked 2 days ago, even if somebody didn't get it right, like he's sort of zeroing in and kind of asking some of the same questions over and over. And even if they're sort of easy questions, the number one questions, a lot of people would get them wrong. This question, that was a number one for me. I guess, actually he considered it pretty difficult, but I got it right.
That's fair. All right, here's one for you. Nick Foles won the Eagles a Super Bowl. He replaced Carson Wentz in the season. Who is the only other player to throw a pass for the Eagles that year? You've heard of him.
Threw a pass for the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Oh,
No.
So he said, he's going to cut me off because I was about to say threw a pass for the Eagles in the Super Bowl year, but he jumped in before you. So you don't hear me say the word year. So I actually was on it. So what I was doing was I had the list of Super Bowls in front of me. I clicked immediately on the Eagles from that year, and I just went down and I found the answer pretty quick, but I had to ask him again for a little clarification just to give myself a little bit of time to look it up. Okay, here we go.
Hold on, no, time out. That year, not necessarily in the Super Bowl, that year.
Sudfeld?
That's correct. Good job. That's a hard one. You got it right. I give you credit for that.
He screwed my Giants out of the playoffs.
Yes, he did. He last year. When was the last time the Cardinals had the number one pick in the draft and didn't select a quarterback?
Okay, I think this one is the old Hall of Famer Charlie Trippy.
You think right. Nice job. 1945. Okay. Joe in Bergen County is a good call.
See, I'm a good call.
There you go.
I'm a good call. You see that? I'm a good call. So this one was one of those, Dog, that he had just asked within now I didn't even get to listen to the first part of the show today. Usually, like if I jump on, like I'll try to catch up, but I was like, oh, I might try to call
you'll get a
today.
couple of the ones and twos right there. People have answered correctly.
Yeah,
sometimes we'll repeat them.
He doesn't usually repeat them if people get them. So but he'll ask
even ones, twos?
the ones and the twos until people get them. So if you could listen earlier in the program, it's always an advantage, but I didn't do that today. So I say today, it's February 3rd, Friday, because you could be listening to this any day, right? There is no today, there is no tomorrow, there is no yesterday, there's only dates. So I didn't have the benefit, of listening to it. And if I did, I might have actually had a little bit more of a clue on one of the things later on, but I don't know. We may get into that. I'll see how it goes. But after you get to two, when you get two right, they start playing the music, and that gets you a little pumped up. That gives you a little juice. Now you're into it. So now, Dog, remember, I played before, whiffed badly on the first question, like every time, which I was like, and you know me, I'm like killing myself over it because I'm like, oh my God, like half the questions I listen to and I figure them out without anything in front of me. Like I'm listening in the car. I'm like, I could probably just take a shot even in the car with nothing in front of me. And if I just happen to get three that fall the right way, I might just know them. But in this case, he had asked that question about the Cardinals. And for me, Dog, again, easy sort, Pro Football Reference right there. Go to the Cardinals page, drafts, and you could sort by position of the pick. Forget about the round. You could sort by position of the pick. Boom, boom, boom. Kyler Murray, he was a quarterback, first overall pick. Guy, 50 years ago was a quarterback, first pick. Charlie Trippy, I couldn't tell you that much about him, but I've heard of him, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he wasn't a quarterback. He was like a halfback. Boom. So that got me. Now we have forever Dog on tape saying Joe in Bergen County is a good player. We might have to use that as a clip for this show all the time. Every time somebody says something bad about me. All right, so now we get to the number 3. And this is where I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
This is where it's getting serious now.
Yeah, but I'm like,
Get the music.
I'm like, there's one question that everybody keeps missing, and I know it. And I'm just praying that I get it. Like for all the other times where he gives me a 1 and like, I don't know it. Like maybe the stars are going to align for me today. Maybe they're going to align. And they did.
Music, please. There you go. One player has a Super Bowl touchdown catch of over 40 yards that went undrafted. Name the player.
Okay, I think I got this one. Used to be a favorite of mine. Is it Rod Smith?
It is. Joe, have you played this week or no?
No, I played in the 1 year where you just gave away the gift certificates. I don't think there were tickets that year. And,
that was the Tampa Bay,
right.
Kansas City year. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, so I get like that year. Actually, I knew the audio, and I was on hold, and the guy in front of me won, and the audio was like really hard. It was like a Chiefs radio broadcaster from like 1969, and I figured it out, and I had it, and I was like on hold, and I like my heart was thumping. Even it was like $1,000. It wasn't Super Bowl tickets, but like
Yeah.
tell me when you can't use $1,000, dog. Like, it's like yeah.
Take the dog his money.
Yeah, this will pay my bar tab for the month. No, but yeah, like I still would have had to answer all those other questions, but I actually, in that case, there was only one audio left, and I knew it. Like I had it cold, and there were so many like I was kind of in the same scenario where I had a really good handle on the questions that he was asking, like right at that time. So playing at the end of the week was really like, it turned out that it was a big advantage for me. I wasn't even on hold for that long because people just kept missing right off the bat. And then Doggy and I are going to recap a little bit of my my history here before the final answer.
And then last year, I played. I think I got on twice last year, and I whiffed badly both times.
Well, he hit
the first
3.
time I've ever got a question right.
No, you hit 3 doubles. Who's your?
See, it's 3 doubles. So he's talking.
go.
He has the sense of Diamond Diehards.
He's a
And I
diehard.
think like we could actually, Dog, I should probably put in the description the show from last year where we played the clips of when I got on. I'll have to go dig that up and put it out there for you guys. Now we're going to talk about my little history and if I've been to a Super Bowl before.
Your favorite? You're a Giant fan, right? You said you were a Giant fan.
Giants, yeah, Giants.
You got Nate Sudfeld. That's an excellent job. Joe, have you been to a Super Bowl before or not?
Yeah, I picked the worst one to go to. I went to the Giant Ravens Super Bowl
In Tampa. That was a blowout. Boy, I'd love to see
my
you make
God.
up.
I didn't have a job, and I begged for money from my brother, and he took me, and it was terrible. But at least we had that moment together.
Okay, so that's my brother Frank, my beloved brother Frank.
There you go.
And actually, I actually did have a job at that time, but I was fucking broke. Like I didn't, oh wait, no. Wait, I gotta think.
Were you still? That was post ticker, right?
That was post ticker. Wait, let's see. When was it? It was
2000, right?
It was 2000. Oh wait, maybe I didn't have. No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I did. I did have the job. I did have a job at that time, but I was broke, and I was on the way to not having a job again because of the when the tech bubble burst. Yeah.
And 3
So I
kids.
think
3 kids, about 3 at that point, or 4.
No, there was none.
Oh wait. Oh no,
It's
that's
done yet.
right. I'm sorry. No, that was me.
Yeah, that was you.
Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, that the .com bubble was like about to burst. So, I wasn't like rolling in funds at that point. So, Frank just stepped up and, he was like,
Put you
I'm not going to let my brother not go to the Super Bowl. But I was freaking out the whole time that I was down there because I didn't have the money and we didn't have like tickets, and like he just made a ticket appear for me. So that's why I love my big bro. All right.
There you go.
On to more Doggy.
Bad game. I sat next to George Young, and 6 months later, he was dead. I mean, believe it or not, he had that terrible, bizarre disease. That
Sorry.
game was in January. It was 11 months later, December. All right, anyway, getting off the beaten path. I'm a little cranky and quirky and tired, but
See, I got Doggy, cranky, quirky, and tired, but I got him talking about George Young. I
There
mean,
you go.
listen, to be a Giant fan in the Super Bowl contest, you got Mad Dog talking about George Young. It doesn't get better than that. Oh, I mean, next thing, Dog, stay on even if I miss it. We got to talk about the 1902 Pirates. Was Honus Wagner really the most underrated player in baseball?
anyway, here we go for Joe. Listen up.
Media timeout and was in the huddle, and it just in that moment, just kind of everyone just kind of locked eyes with one another and was like, "This is it. We're gonna go do it." Obviously, you know, had that fourth down, just an incredible conversion. So we don't have that. That's probably the game. I mean, just every single time it was just like someone happened to be like, "All right, guys, next play, lock in, next play." For us to get some of those balls snapped with how loud it was, that was a challenge for sure.
Okay. I
Saints center.
I actually screwed this up like in my tweets and in the information I was passing to everybody, because I now know the answer and I still don't know the answer. So I'm gonna let this play.
If you get it, great job. You got 3 tough ones. Can you make it 4? Who is that?
Well, I'll tell you, I thought I was confident on this one because I thought it was actually, I thought I had the theme, but you kind of sent everybody off of the Giants one in Arizona.
Okay. So when I heard this clip during the week, one of the ways that I sort of get hints is I hear what the wrong answers are by the other callers. And a lot of people were zeroing in on the Giants' victory over the Patriots that was in Arizona. You're like, okay, the theme is maybe Arizona Super Bowls, whatever. There've been 3, right? This is only the 4th. So maybe there's something mixed in with that, even though they wouldn't be able to get 4 from that. They wouldn't use 2 from the same game. So I guess it was sort of faulty logic, but people were answering like linemen from the Giants, like Sean O'Hara and Chris Snee and Kevin Boss. And I was like, so I listened and I'm like, Dave Osborne was a Vikings running back and he was, maybe it's like that kind of theme. And I'm like, oh my God, this might be Madison Hedgecock. So I was convinced that this was Madison Hedgecock until I wasn't, because he said it's like not from that game. I'm like, I guess it's not Madison Hedgecock then. So I got to get somebody else. So at this point, I've decided that it's going to be somebody from the Saints team that won the Super Bowl, because on the way there, they beat the Cardinals.
Yeah, with the crazy conversion.
Yeah. Like, and I was going to just say one of the Saints, and I'm like, okay, because Dave Osborne was a running back, I'm just going to pick a running back. I think somebody had picked one of the tight ends already.
So I'm going to take a stab and say Heath Evans.
It's a good guess, but that is not it. All right. That's a good guess right there, Heath Evans, isn't it? Not bad.
Okay. So the funny thing is, okay. I was telling everybody, I'm like, and in my tweet, I'm like, when the answer is Heath Miller and you say Heath Evans, but that wasn't the Heath Miller cut. I didn't realize it until I went back and listened to the rest of the show and then went back and listened to my clip again. I was like totally agnostic to whichever clip they were playing. No matter which clip they were playing, I was going to answer Heath Evans. I didn't have another answer. I didn't even have a guess. So I'm like, all right, like I'm just going to answer Heath Evans. So it was actually a different clip that I thought I was even answering to. And that clip, and the clip that they just played was a lineman from the Rams from last season, which I was dumb. And I should have looked, because the Rams beat the Cardinals on the way. And I knew that. And I sort of had that figured out a little bit. But then I wasn't sure if it was wait, teams who beat the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl and then lost, or that's why I sort of discounted the Steelers winning the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. But if I had done that, I might have been able to get it if I got the Heath Miller question. So another clip was actually Heath Miller. This was like a lineman from the Rams who's not even on the Rams anymore. If I could maybe find the spot here where they played the clips in the end. Let's see.
Give me a sec here, Dawg.
No, that's somebody else.
Thank Doug Miller for that.
That's probably not
Able
the
to do
spot.
that.
All right, that is a player on a team,
Okay, well, here's where he.
You know, we don't want to go 3.
Carolina, to either a championship or a Super Bowl, beat the Cardinals. Minnesota, 72, I believe it was. 74, beat the Cardinals 30-14. Carolina, on the way to Super Bowl 50, beat the Cardinals. That's 2. Here is another one, a cut. I'll tell you who it is after we play it, and then I'll explain.
Okay, this is the part of the show where he was explaining who the actual cuts were, and then I was like, still so crushed, and not even realizing that I just was going to answer Heath Evans to, like, no matter what it was.
Well, to be honest, I think, you know, we were just like, let's just get a first down here because, you know, we don't want to go 3 and out and also punt the ball back to a red hot offense in great field position. So, yeah, we just needed a positive play to kind of get us on the right foot. And we were able to do that.
All right, that is a player on a team that beat Arizona, this time to win it all. Pittsburgh, Heath Miller, tight end.
Okay, so when I heard that, that's when I was like, oh my God, I said Heath. And then if I say Miller instead of Evans, like, I win the contest. But then I realized later, I was like, oh, wait, that wasn't the clip that they played me. like, oh, they didn't even play me that one. They played a different one. So I was totally locked in. I think this is the one where he plays the clip that I heard.
We thought you'd get that. So Minnesota beat the Cardinals on the way. Carolina beat the Cardinals on the way. Minnesota beat the Cardinals to win a title.
And Heath Miller is talking about the final drive that ended in the Santonio Holmes famous catch. They actually had a holding penalty that put them back on their own 12 after Arizona had just scored 16 straight points to take the lead. They had the ball on their own 12 with just, 3 minutes to go, whatever it was. They went all the way down the field, hit the game-winning touchdown.
Roethlisberger, 1st and 20. All right, that's number 1.
And of course, we should just note that Boomer's Arizona Cardinals choked it up in that one.
Shocker.
Even though Kurt Warner, like, you know, what I think is, like, and now we'll just take a little aside and we'll talk some football for a second. But Dawg, like, Kurt Warner actually drove his team to 3 game-winning drives in 3 Super Bowls, and he only won one of them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? I mean, there's no way that Arizona should have lost that game after the comeback that they had. And the James Harrison 100-yard interception return on the last play of the first half. Like, if that doesn't happen, it's like Arizona, I don't know if they run away, but they win, like, convincingly. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No love for Boomer. Sorry, Boomer Hilbert
Oops.
reporting from Arizona. All right, so here's the actual cut that I lost on, and then after this, we're going to talk about why I might be the answer to a trivia question myself.
This is number 2. It's a tricky one. Listen up.
Media timeout and was in the huddle, and it just in that moment, just kind of everyone just kind of locked eyes with one another and was like, "This is it. We're gonna go do it." Obviously, you know, had that 4th down, just an incredible conversion. So we don't have that. That's probably the game. I mean, just every single time it was just like someone happened, be like, "All right, guys, next play, lock in, next play." For us to get some of those balls snapped with how loud it was, that was a challenge for sure.
That's a hard one. Again, that's a team that beat the Cardinals on the way in. That's a Ram from last year. That is Austin Corbett, who's an offensive lineman. Now he plays, I believe, for Carolina, does he not?
That is correct.
Okay, Austin Corbett could walk up to me and punch me in the face right now, and I wouldn't know who the hell Austin Corbett was, except for the guy that cost me a chance to go to the freaking Super Bowl. So now, Dawg, if anybody out there wants to buy me or acquire me an Austin Corbett jersey, I will gladly wear it on the show. So Austin, if you are out there, get in contact with me at Diamond Diehards on Twitter or any other social media that you like. Please join the Facebook group. I know you want to be part of it if you're not watching already. Austin Corbett. All right.
Someone's got a Corbett Rams jersey laying around.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, Boomer probably would have had one back when he was a Rams fan. It's like
Tough to keep up.
the Boomer Hilbert show right now. He's reporting. Yeah, Dog. So why, you might ask, will Riz potentially be the answer to a trivia question as a result of this?
I do not know, Riz. Why would you be the answer to a trivia question someday?
Okay, because at the end of the show, just after this part, this is right in the last little sequence, and I don't have the rest of it queued up, but I'll just talk about it. So because of the controversy that we talked about at the top of the show, where there was the disqualification and the reinstatement of one of the winners, and they had 4 prize packages available this week. They only gave away 2. And it's a really difficult contest to do. Like these questions are hard to come up with, and then you have to come up with themes, and then you have to come up with audio, and it's got to be hard to get. You can't just have it be so easy. And then on top of that, they lengthen the shows in the early part of the week. They're 4 hours instead of 3. And then the Friday show stays at 3 hours. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed on. I would have tried to call back and see if I could win again, or take another shot. But they only gave away 2, and because of what happened, of course, like right after it's over, like a boxer or an MMA fighter who's just been through a war, and is a 14-year veteran of it, or Dog's probably been doing the contest even longer than that. Their first inclination is, I'm done. I'm hanging it up. I'm not doing this again. And that's what he said. He said, right now I feel like I'm not doing this again. But when it comes down to it, he said, he's just going to have to decide on it in the future. So that means if he never does the contest again, yours truly goes down in history as the last person to get an audio question in the history of the contest. How about that?
Wow. That's a goodie. Very nice.
That's a Mad Dog Super Bowl trivia level trivia question right there. You
That's
got to
question
dig deep.
5.
Yeah, that's a 5. Yeah, that's a 5. Where like one person cares about it, and it's me. That's a 5.
I got
Nobody cares, guys. Don't worry about it. Nobody cares. You did a whole podcast just to set that up. I did. I kind of did. I kind of just did that, and you kind of just listened to it or watched it, and we appreciate your support. Dog, what's going on in baseball? Nothing, right? Like we're just pitchers and catchers are getting ready to report.
McNeil contract. Nice little contract there.
Yeah.
For the Messies.
The trucks are gathering accoutrement, and many have already hit the road to go to the spring training destinations, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Oh, it stinks. Our pal Jeff Fry is up in the area, but I don't think he's quite close enough here, and there's stuff going on this weekend, so I don't think we're going to be able to catch up with him. But
he's been kind of all over.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of stuff going on.
He gone. I mean, she gone. I mean, he gone. Winter workouts have started for Luisa Rizzo and the Ramapo softball team. They been swinging a bat.
Just got some Highlander baseball gear for Michael starting in the spring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, going from trying out at least. We'll see.
Speaking of the Highlanders, Dog, I am reading a book about Honus Wagner, and and of course, if you listen to the show or watch the show, you know that when I say reading, I mean listening to an audiobook of a biography of Honus Wagner. So I'm getting into this. I read. Well, I'm just going to say read one of Christy Mathewson's book. He's the goat. Christy Mathewson. And just that lingo of like 1912, I'm like, it only took me 111 years to read this book. The Wagner book is about, those times, but it was written, much more recently. And it's just cool, like to like these Deadball era guys, like they played a different game. They had so many other challenges. And it's just really neat stuff to read about. Like I know about these guys. I've never really read. I'm not very well read on that era of baseball, and there's not too much in terms of documentarian information about that time unless you really go out and search for it. Babe Ruth wasn't playing yet. I mean, Wagner was retiring just as Ruth was breaking into the league. Christy Mathewson was leaving to fight a war about the time Babe Ruth was was coming in. But there's a lot of really cool stuff about the formation of, what we now know as the National League, and to think that the way that it was concocted sometime around 1902, it didn't change for like another 50 years. And you couldn't say that for the next 50 years after that. Like, it's kind of funny. And you couldn't say that for the 50 years after that, which we're still like, we're like 20 years into that at this point, essentially. Really cool stuff. Like Wagner, when you look at the record keeping and the information that was available from that time, and all the way into the time that he was one of the first inductees into the Hall of Fame, where you get the most votes, he was really widely regarded as the best to play, and it wasn't necessarily reflected just in his numbers. And it harkened me back, as we talk about our buddy Jeff Fry and Shigon Nation. It harkened me back to it's like, Dawg, it's like we're still having these debates today. Like, where is it numbers or is it the eye test? And then, like if you look at the numbers for Wagner, you have to put it in perspective of the dead ball era. So, 101 career home runs. Like, if he came along 20 years later, he probably hits 3, maybe 4 times that. He was a very powerful hitter for the times. You could sort of kind of equate it a little bit in terms of triples and doubles, but it's not, there's no way to make it apples to apples. And it's a very, very close time. Like, it's literally like the next generation and a half ahead of him. I feel like he probably projects out the way Hornsby did. Like, I feel like Hornsby and Wagner, very similar, although, Hornsby's numbers were absurd and Wagner's numbers are incredible. But even as incredible as his numbers were, he was an even better player than that. We had the debate on the Hall of Fame show last week where Scott Rowland got in, and that debate has carried on to our thread. Our pal Mike Serra, who's on and has commented even on the chat tonight, talking about one of his favorite players, John Forcade. John Forcade is back, one of the best quotes ever. We didn't know you were ever here, John, but thank you. Thank you. But that debate carried into work with me. I work remotely, and it carried into work. About was like David Wright. Like, I just think David Wright he was just a better player than Scott Rowland. And then, Mattingly's name came up. Like, who would you take if you had your choice between Mattingly, Scott Rowland, and David Wright? Who would you take, even knowing what the end result was going to be? Like, you take Mattingly 10 out of 10 times, right? Like, I mean, first base versus third base. Theoretically, third is maybe a more important position, but not the way Mattingly played it, right? Defensive wizards, both. And then, Wright, a superior offensive player for a shorter period. I call it the Federer versus Nadal argument, Dawg. Like, Wright had a higher peak. Rowland was like better for
Mr. Steady,
yeah, he was better for longer. But I don't know, like, who would I take? I mean, in the tennis one, I'm a Federer guy, so
yeah.
Maybe I should.
See, it's interesting. Like we talked about it last time, right? Where you have is it the peak, or is it the longevity and stuff? And it's tough because there's so much in the Hall has been based around the longevity, right? And particularly like the numbers accumulation, things like that, and being good for a long time and stuff. So that's sort of the argument I kind of throw back when people sort of take the shot at it. He wasn't the best player for like a couple of years or something like that. And the Hall traditionally kind of hasn't had that sort of focus, right? It's you've been one of the best, if not the best players for a long period. So again, it's it's a small hall, big hall. And is that sort of changing, and that'll be interesting, right? As you're gonna have less 300 game winners and stuff like that, like and relief pitchers are taking on more and more prominence. Like, the Hall is gonna have to evolve, right? You're not gonna have the automatic things that you kind of vote for anymore. you're going to have different ways to look at it. Like whip is going to be a much bigger thing for pitchers and stuff, right? It used to be just, you get your 300. If you didn't get your 300, you kind of need to rationalize why you didn't, if you're going to make it in. Now, nobody's going to have that. You're not going to get 300 game winners. So now it's, what's your latest criteria to kind of judge, what the, is it win-loss percent? Is it that and whip? Who knows? It's going to be in the eye of the beholder.
And then you go back to, those early Pirates teams, and Jack Cheeseborough was a guy that was on those Pirate teams, Happy Jack, and then he ends up leaving to go to the Highlanders. You were talking about your Highlanders, but the New York Highlanders before they were the Yankees. And because he had incorporated a spitball, he ends up winning 41 games in a season. So now that's like a 3-season total for some of these guys, right? Like you'd be lucky. Like, is there anybody in the majors, Dawg, who's won 41 games over the last 2
there might almost be
seasons
2 years of
combined?
starts at this point.
Yeah, well,
Crazy.
maybe. Is there a 41 game winner over the last 2 years in baseball? Jerry Milani, where are you, buddy?
Yeah, but say, I don't know. The top there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to figure it out. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Mike Sarro will figure it out. Mike Sarro also says Koufax was, he's the sort of exception. He was the best for 5 to 6 years, but average early part of his career, right? He just didn't have his control yet. And then his end was abrupt, but it was at his peak.
Yeah.
And, we haven't usually seen that, in the exception of where, catastrophic circumstances, right? Like where a player is taken from us in the middle of his career at the peak of it. And, Koufax was long for many more years here. And, if it was with today's medicine and operations, he might have decided to keep going, and piling up these years the way Kershaw keeps going year by year. And Dawg, I mean, he's not peak Kershaw, but man, he's still like a top 10 pitcher to me, big advantage for the Dodgers to be able to bring him back year after year. I feel like, yeah, Koufax the exception. There's and there's been some other guys that had, like, his peak was just so high, right? Like Mattingly's peak was high, but it wasn't Koufax high. Koufax's peak was Inner Circle Hall of Fame peak. But then, we just start to see some of these guys, like, and again, it's like you talk about it and you see these interviews with Scott Rowland, and he's so gracious and he's so nice, but like, it's nothing against him personally. Like, for him, you feel good, and he's, I mean, if they're going to give it to him, he ought to take it. But I just can't help, as like a baseball person, looking at that and being like, there's so many other players that I could name that are just much more deserving, even if we don't think they're deserving of like the Hall, right? I mean, like,
well, I said it, and as a Met fan, right, that Roland is the gateway drug to David Wright.
How about
laid it
Albert
out,
Bell?
right? It's like Wright was a better player. There you go.
Like, how is Albert Bell not in the Hall of Fame? Like, you want to talk about numbers? Like, what numbers does he not have?
That's because they all hated him.
I know.
That's why he's not in.
The only number that he has is 666, the number of the beast, which is what they thought of him, from a writer's perspective and a media perspective.
Yeah.
But as a player, I mean, he was
gaudy. Yeah, I mean, it was
great.
I
mean, you could call it a 10-year period, but solidly for like 8 years, you could make an argument in any given one of those years that he was the best hitter in either league. You had some numbers that were a little wacky and wonky that were coming out of Colorado, but he just did it all the time, every year. He did in regular season and playoffs. He never got the chip, but he came close, and was not a notable defensive player, but still did play in the outfield, most of that time.
Yep.
And got limited a little bit later on, and was mostly DHing. But like, you look even at his years for the White Sox and the Orioles, which you don't even remember that he played for those teams, and still those friggin' years were good years. We're Like you would wish that you could have a guy like that in the middle of your lineup. Like you think like Nelson Cruz is good, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was like, you know, far from peak Albert Bell, was still better than that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Dougie, should we wrap it up over there?
Yeah. Sounds good. Get a little din.
Yeah. And maybe breakfast. I can't remember if I ate. Oh, I think I might have eaten some yogurt today. I don't know. I was a little pumped up. Work has been good. And the Super Bowl's an exciting time for us during the daytime gig. So I think once again we could reiterate that we do have sponsors. They do support us really well. And they appear in the description of the show. If you're watching it on YouTube or on the Facebook group, they're in there. And please just go take a look. There might be something, you know, a service or a name that you recognize or that you want to utilize. Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey. The Mascolo Group Realtors, who just award-winning realtors, by the way. Gary and Michele
Nice.
just both got big awards and recognition
Very cool.
within the North Jersey area. So good job on that. FMSgraphics.com, all your printing and promotional needs, steady. Just steady. Family run, family owned business, 50 plus years steady. And of course, the great Big Ed at Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, Bergen County area, Passaic County area. Get your ride clean. The weather's still bad for a while here. And you know, you got to get your vehicle in there. Dawg, you in particular have to get your vehicle there.
I know, badly.
And Ed, like I said, is looking to have you over to his crib. So
Nice.
we'll have to pop over there one of these nights. So thanks to our wonderful supporters. And if you'd like to support us, if you're checking us out on YouTube and you haven't hit subscribe or the alerts button yet, it's down there somewhere. Please go do that. And if you haven't joined up to the Facebook group, it's a really good thing to do. A nice little community that we've built over there for about 3 years here as we come up on anniversary number 3, Dawg, if you could believe that.
Wow.
Like we said, we'll have Mike Puma from the New York Post coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I don't know if we'll have a live show on that one. We'll probably put up the next day. But we've started to do more of these, like some of the author shows, writers, and different kinds of guests and things like that. And we're going to continue to do that more and more and more. And Dawg and I will keep mixing in these shows. That's sort of what the format is these days. And Dawg, I'm always appreciative that you jump at the drop of the hat when this one was like totally unplanned and you know, something happened and the Dawg's there. That's why Dawg's my ride or die. So
There we go. Good
All
stuff.
right.
Love it.
that is going to do it for, I don't know, we call it a Friday Night Live. We can.
Sure. Friday Night
As we
Lights.
wrap it up on February 3rd, February 2nd was Groundhog Day. Thank you, Jerry Milani, for changing the course of my life. Groundhog Day many years ago. I appreciate that. Good job. Go have some scrunchy punch, bud. Yeah. All right. And we complete the inside jokes part of our show, but a lot of people probably actually do get that. And someday we'll explain it. It just won't be on the air. All right. I think I H-bombed that segment, Doc.
Oh, nice.
That is going to do it for the February 3rd, a Friday Night Live. Riz nearly makes history, and he still might be the answer to the trivia question. And he talks about himself in the third person. That is going to do it. Follow the podcast also on the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify mainly, and give us some feedback. You know, if you like the show or you want to see different guests or things that we could do better, or things that you like that you want us to keep doing, then let us know about it. And we appreciate all that feedback and the support for ourselves and our sponsors. That's gonna wrap it up for the Dawg, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.